Hello everyone, this is Serath from Defection Gaming here, bringing you the February 20th patch. Now this patch is bringing in some balance changes and some general bug fixes. I'll go over the bug fixes first, because it's that gets the quick information out of the way, and then we can discuss about the gods, because lots of gods have had changes and interesting balance tweaks, and I'll discuss at the end what that means to the game, but I'll go through them and what this means for each god while it happen. Anyway, in general, we've had fixed condition in which players were sometimes getting stuck in the logging please wait screen. This happened to me. I'm very glad that they've changed that. Fixed an exploit in the item store. I've heard rumours about this, but I never experienced it or tried, because I haven't been able to play for the last couple of days. Apparently, people were able to buy almost an infinite amount of things and sell things for more than they were worth, etc. in the item store, so that has been fixed and changed to make that more appealing and not happen again. There's also fixed an issue in which the enemy could be stuck permanently in the darkness from Sri Lanka's ult. This did happen to me once. I was very confused for about a minute and a half, and then we surrendered because it wasn't good. But so long as they've fixed a proper terminate into the end of that particular ability, that's fine. Modified the back-end technology methodology for retrieving Twitch TV stream information, essentially making the Smite TV better, which I completely agree with, because I love Smite TV. I encourage everyone who is not doing anything and has their computer on to go to the Smite TV page and put that up, because it's very, very interesting to watch and very fun, and anything we can do to make that idea more appealing to higher res is absolutely fantastic. Anyway, the gods. Now, I'm going to go over the gods. There have been a couple of interesting patch things which have gone on, and I think you might be interested to see them. Right, Arachne. Her drain life was, in the last patch, or the patch before, it was, the healing was reduced by a significant amount because it didn't have a contribution for your physical power. Now, she gets a physical power contribution for 5% of the physical power per tick. So the longer you stay on someone, you get more and more and more physical power. This means that at the end of the ability, you're going to get, I think it's 60%, something like that. An extra, it's a large amount of extra damage. And you'll be hearing this a lot from me, this video. So long as it is not more than 5 seconds, I don't think it will be too overpowered. I mean, it will be very, very strong at the beginning, but it's only 5% as it's being accumulated. So a quick jump, nab, 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 jump off, that will only give you 10 or 15%, which is fine. It's not a huge, huge amount, and you can just hit. If you're standing on a mage, you will silence them for a huge amount of time, then jump off, then hit them for insane damage. And if you've got a frostbound hammer, they will die very quickly. And I think this is this will make these abilities, because they're on a couple of physical carries, these abilities will make frostbound hammer more viable and a lot more valuable. They haven't buffed it or changed it in any way. I don't see any items in this patch, but we'll get to see. But anyway, it's an interesting ability to add, because they took out a lot of god sustain ability. They've lowered quite considerably, really. But this is an interesting thing to have. And I think that it's not necessarily overpowered. They might reduce it to 2.5%, I don't know. But this particular ability, I don't think is overly strong, because you've got to put yourself in danger on top of someone in a team fight, and you can be attacked really easily and pulled into a tower and all sorts of things. So we'll have to see how it comes out. But I don't view it as being too overpowered, so long as the time of having this physical power isn't too much. Bakasura, his Eat minion. The base healing has been reduced, and from 320 at his max level to 270, so that's 50 less at max level. I don't see this necessarily as being a problem. It won't affect Bakasura that much. But what they're trying to do, and you can see this in most gods, is they're curbing the healing. They're making sure that people can't just run into the jungle, go to one buff camp, heal all the way back to 100%, and then run back into the fight. So they're sort of lowering everyone's sustain, because they've done it with Sobek to have the same ability as Neath, which is the AoE heal you hit, you can only get 3 creep or 3 people's worth of healing out of it. You don't get the whole lot. You do damage to everything, surely, but you do not get the whole healing, because that would be considered really strong. And so I think they're trying to balance out survivability, because you can really pub stomp really hard with certain gods such as Basakura, and in competitive play I think it's more interesting if there's more risk for gods when going in, because if you run in with a Basakura, there's no real risk. As long as you can get out, you're fine, because you can just run away, go into a buff camp, eat your minion and come back out. You won't lose any experience from having to go back. But this will make, I think, main people have to go back a bit more, and it will be more costly. And hopefully that will lead to more interesting gameplay, but also on the negative, it could mean that people stay on their towers the whole game, which isn't interesting at all. So we'll just have to see what these healing changes do, and that's all I'm going to say about the healing changes. I might mention it a couple more times on the things, but I'll try not to. Also, he gets the physical power contribution has been added, increasing by 70% of his physical power. Now, 70% is a big number. Especially paired next to a god which has true damage from his number 3 ability. He's able to chomp through tanks. 70. If he just eats a minion, he then has a huge buff. He could have movement speed for killing minions, and be able to catch up and do a huge amount of damage, and poking 2 gods. And all I can see in my mind is a fed Basakura eating 1 minion, dropping his ultimate, and chewing apart half a team in a team fight, because there's nothing they can do about it. 70% seems very high. It probably seems very high to you watching now. I remember when everyone was screaming that Thor's ability was overpowered, because he had 60% extra, no, 60%, he had 60 extra physical power if he was at the beginning, jumping into a 3-man, at the beginning when he was running into a 3-man buff camp. He could get an extra 60 physical power, and that's a huge amount of extra power to be put onto a Majona's Attunement or his Spinny Tornado ability. 70% seems like an absolute boatload. And I know Basakura, most Basakura players, puts him towards attack speed, but I don't necessarily just go full attack speed. I have quite a lot of physical power in there as well, and it's just, this seems absolutely painful. And I'm pretty sure in a couple of days, if not tomorrow, we'll get a patch reducing this. But Hi-Rez has to try things out. I applaud them for putting new abilities in the game to try and make gods like Basakura, who aren't picked very much in competitive play, more competitive. But this just seems to be the ultimate curb stomping thing, and I think they might even remove it or reduce it. I think they want to keep it, because this is an interesting thing, because it will help them balance out a lot of gods, but they do need to make sure that it is balanced, and I think 70% isn't balanced. If it's for 3-5 seconds, it might be balanced, but if it's for anything more than that, it will just be absolutely obscene. I even think 5 seconds is too much, because you can get Basakura with full attack speed, can get 7-8 attacks off, and more than that, 10 attacks off in 5 seconds. Nears makes a difference, but then you close the difference and you're doing about 6, 7, 8 attacks maybe after you've eaten the minion. So I don't know. It might be a very dangerous ability. We will just have to see how it goes. Cupid. This is another one which I think might be a bit interesting. He has a physical power contribution. It's increasing 25% of his physical power per heart. Now, it doesn't necessarily say per heart that is consumed, which would be anyone collecting the heart would get 75% extra contribution for that amount of time. Whether it is 25% over 5 seconds, but they're 3 separate buffs. So as you pick them up, your first one's nearly empty, which could be interesting. Or that if it is Cupid who gets the buff, even if other people pick up the hearts. I can see it being misused quite a lot if if your physical carries are able to pick that up. That would be insane, because Basakura was 70%, it gets an extra 75%. Oh, goodbye, absolutely anything. We'll just have to see. But Cupid, 75% on Cupid doesn't terrify me, because his damage is slowish. At the end game, that will be absolutely obscene. But in terms of, at the beginning, getting fed, his damage is much more poke orientated than running in and getting an insane amount of instant damage, because you have to have your heart bomb, and then you have to do your ultimate. But a 75% double hit on a heart bomb and an ultimate hit is a big hit. So I think that, I don't know how it's going to be moved for Cupid. I think it might be a bit overpowered. I think that 20% would have been fine. So I think that's what they'll do if they reduce Cupid's. But I think what they're doing, again, they're trying to make gods more used and competitive. I mean, Cupid's used-ish, but Sobek was nerfed, and the Cupid-Sobek lane kind of tailed off, and he isn't really in the current meta, and I think they want to see him back again. But I think that a buff this big is big. 75% is just huge. And I just don't know how that is going to impact. I mean, no one really knows how this could impact. I mean, it could be, as I said before, and I'm sorry for repeating myself, it could be a small little buff, which means that people who know what they're doing can capitalise and get a bit more damage out than they would have done, which is fine. And that could be what pushes these gods into the competitive scene. However, if it is for a long time, like a long time, like over 5 seconds, then I can see this being an incredible pub stomping ability for the next couple of days. I can see, I can't imagine that I would lose a pub match unless there is a fed Basakura who's doing even more, who's being fed even better on the enemy team. Because if you can just get this, it'd be bad. A huge amount, a huge amount. And the also thing which is terrifying is it doesn't seem to have a level increasing cap. So the contribution from Basakuras could be 70% at level 1 of each minion. And that's terrifying, because you'll get an extra 70%, so you'll be able to be hitting people for way over 100, potentially 200 in the early levels. And a mage who is got 600 health will die in 3 or 4 hits from a Basakura who can do those 3 or 4 hits in the 5 seconds he's got the buff for, which is terrifying. And that's not including his true damage that he can do, and that's not including the fact that he can jump on them and do damage first. And Cupid, is his hearts going to give him 75% extra physical, because then he'd just pop his hearts, collect his hearts, shoot a heart bomb, and watch the physical carries health drop from 100% to 50%. And then do it again in 10 seconds time when everything's back up, drop the hearts, get everything in, put the heart bomb, then ult, then guy dies. That is the easiest thing I can think of. I can't think of an easier way to do huge damage. I think that if there isn't a, as I said, physical sort of, it starts out at 5% and then max level is 25%. For example, with Cupid, and each minion, it starts off at, I don't know, 12.5% and ends up at 70%, something like that. Unless it's got that kind of thing in it, it will be a huge amount of, it'll be evil at low levels, and we'll have to be very. It'll make early game very exciting. It'll make early game very interesting and very exciting, but it will also potentially end up with a lot of rage quitting and potential people leaving the game. If, you know, if they think, oh, high res has broken the game, I can just get eaten by Basakura every 5 seconds. There's no point me playing. Off, quit, leave account. And yeah, so I don't want that to happen, and I don't think high-res want it to happen. So I think they need to be a bit careful. And I think these abilities will get nerfed a little bit, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see, because there aren't... I apologise for not having more information, but they've literally just come out in the last half an hour. They literally don't have times or anything on them, so we kind of have to speculate on what they could be, which is why it's guesswork, and which is why it's an interesting patch, because we have no idea what's going to happen. Genuinely, it's the patch is the servers are down at the moment, and the patch is loading now. I actually, reading this, I do not know what the next hour or so of me playing Smite is going to be. It's going to be quite interesting, to say the least, really. So we'll just have to see. Anyway, let's continue. Hell, they've buffed her a little bit here, which is interesting. I think is very, very good. Her decay and restoration. The base damage of this ability has been increased up to 3 at the beginning of the game, so that it does more when you're starting. Which I think it needed a little bit of a buff, because it was not registering too much. It wasn't as a damage ability. It wasn't doing a lot, and I think it needed to. The cooldown has been decreased, which I also agree with, because I thought 12 seconds was a big amount of time for that ability. Because, well, Hell was overpowered, quite clearly. No one will disagree with that. Then she was nerfed to absolute pieces, and she became utterly useless. So they're just gently buffing her to see where she gets to. So that's what I think, which I applaud them for trying to get the balance right. But she should never have been that strong in the first place, really. 8 seconds means a 4-second cooldown on the other one, which means she will be able to do, for example, decay, then hinder, then repulse, then change, and go straight into a restoration, which is not that dangerous, really. If you're talking about it, it's not too bad. I don't see any huge advantages being made in that. The hinder and cleanse has been reduced by 2 seconds per level on the cooldown, which I think is good, because I think that it was a little bit too high, especially at early levels. There was no point even pretty much having it. I mean, you could bead your friends and slow your enemies, but at early levels there was no real, because 16-second cooldown, I mean, it's a huge thing, a huge cooldown, and it didn't seem like, because you'd always do restoration and inspire first, because healing with Hell was what you needed, and hinder just became very, very low as in terms of an ability that was used. So I'm glad they're buffing that a little bit. I see it getting buffed a bit more later on. Repulse and inspire, essentially it's gone to a 10-second cooldown at all ranks, so it's a 5-second cooldown on the mirrored half. If you didn't know, all of Hell's abilities that are triggered in one stance, for example, if I'm in Dark stance, when you change into Light stance, they're on a half a cooldown what the other one was. For example, Decay and Restoration. Decay, you shoot. Now it's an 8-second cooldown. So you would shoot the ability, and in your Dark stance, there would be a 8-second cooldown. In your Light stance, there will be a 4-second cooldown. Now, I think I made a video about this when she was getting buffed. I thought that there should be a kind of buff implement on the other side, but make her ability stronger, and I think that's what they're doing. But I do agree with it being 10 seconds at all ranks, because that is... because 10 seconds for her AoE ability just seems good to me. It just seems strong. And, well, not strong, it just seems balanced, is a word I should say. So I think that will be... I think Hell has not necessarily been fixed yet, we'll have to see. But I think that's along the right lines. Hercules. His Earthbreaker. The cooldown has been changed from 20 seconds to 15 seconds, which I agree with. I think that leaving it at the same sort of time as an Arachne ult was a bit silly, because he now has to put himself in danger to use the ability. So Yeah, I think the Earthbreaker's about where it needs to be. I don't see it being that overpowered anymore. But 15 seconds, we'll have to see whether people agree or disagree with that. I personally think that's fine. I have no problem with that because now it's in roughly the same thing as Sobek's Charge Prey, which I think is in a good place. It's a very good ability and it pulls people in, but you know, the idea is that you are put in danger when you're doing it. And I think this is a good balance, which is what we want. Excavate, the base damage ability has been increased from at low levels, which I agree with. 200, 300, 450, that sort of thing. It's not bad. It's a good start. It's a better starting ability, but a dangerous ending ability. Because it's now at 800 top-end damage. I think that 800 top-end damage is going very close to the Ao Kuang ultimate. Now, I think that lots of people thought that Hercules' Earthbreaker was his ultimate, and I agreed because it was a very, very strong ability. And Excavate was just an ability that got you a bit of extra damage here and there. Putting it at 800 is very strong. With 100% physical power contribution, you're hitting over a K easily when you're level 20. Easy peasy a K, which is half a mage's health. It's dangerous, and in the jungle, it honestly in the jungle it's strong. Like Ao Kuang, his ultimate in the jungle is strong, and this will be very strong in the jungle. And I don't think it's necessarily overpowered. I think it's strong, but not overpowered. And that's what we'll have to curb and see how good it is. Callie, Siphon Blood. The base healing has been reduced, and you're only allowed 3 targets now. So the most healing you can get is 390, which is fine, really. As I said before, all of the sustain guys are having their healing nerfed a little bit. What makes me slightly worried is the fact that her physical power contribution from this ability has been increased by 30% per target hit for up to 3 targets, so she gets 90% extra physical power. Thank you, Hi-Rez. Callie now does double damage for a certain amount of time. It's huge. It's huge. 90% on a physical carry. I know Callie's never picked in competitive play, and the reason is not her damage. They're making the same mistake as they did with Freya. They put Freya's Irradiate to stupid amounts of damage, and she just pub stomped. Callie is not picked because she doesn't have a reliable escape. That is why she isn't picked. She's too easily taken from by the enemy team. It's like in chess. The enemy. This is a piece that the enemy can take very easily because Callie is very easily put into a position where she has to make a crazy move. For example, if she has low health at the beginning stages, she will attempt to get her Siphon Blood off. She will attempt to get into range to use her cone ability to do damage to the whole creep wave. You're able to capitalize on that because she has to get into position to use her abilities properly. You're able to capitalize and kill her very quickly. In a competitive environment, you can keep her so bogged down that she will never, ever, ever be anywhere near the gold that you are. It's too easy to keep her bogged down. And it's very easy to kill her at early levels because she does not have any escape mechanism, and she'll have to use her damaging thing, her number 1, to run away, which is bad because you can just be wrapped or rooted or stunned or something while that's happening. That's why Callie is not picked in competitive. It is not because she doesn't do damage. Callie does a huge amount of damage, and a 90% increase is worrying. I am terrified. It's double damage Callie at the end. Can you imagine? Endgame team fights. She'll run in from the side. There'll be a 4v5 going on. She will use Siphon Blood, even if it is only for 5 seconds. She will 2-hit whatever physical carries there because she will do 2 ridiculous crits because she's got, obviously, Rage and Deathbringer. She will then charge for the next person, get 2 hits of max damage off of that. The ability drops down and she's only doing 100%, but the next character is so low she's able to just kill that. She then moves to the other 3 and she'll be able to get quadra kills and pentakills and ganking a 4v5 team fight. It is worrying a 90% increase because they high res 5 seconds of this is too strong. Because if you've got a Callie fighting them on their creep wave at level 5, they jump into you because you've overextended. You use Siphon Blood to heal up. You use your ultimate. They are confused about why both of them have just died because you were able to 3 or 4 hit them with your ultimate. Because they jump in with a Shibalanke and run in with a Guan Yu at 50% health to try and kill you with his ultimate. And you just spin round and kill. And they have no way to stop you doing that, and that's what High Res has made her into a pub stomper, and this ability has to be lowered or has to be curbed at 5 seconds at the absolute maximum, because all I can see is Frostbound Hammer becoming the most overpowered item in the entire game because Callie will run around, get Siphon Blood and murder, and it will be hilarious and it will be terrifying. And as I'm doing this, the patch is being, it might even be done by now, but the servers were down while they were putting it up today, so I have no idea how this is going to work. I have literally no idea how it's going to work. I've never gone into a patch, I've never gone into a game after a patch so cautious that everything's going to be terrifying. And when I see on the enemy team a Callie, a Neith, a Batakora, and a Cupid, and an Arachne, I'll be sitting there going, oh damn, every one of them has read the patch notes. And my team has none of those people, because I'm tanking with the Ymir, other people are doing other things. So this could be genuinely very frightening. I would just need to assure people, because there will probably be a patch very shortly to change this, but you need to be very careful around Callie. Especially Callie. Basakura as well, but Callie can get her Siphon Blood off anywhere. Basakura has to be around a minion. You can stay away from Basakura because he has to be on minions to be maximum effectiveness. Siphon Blood can be used anywhere. She can get a 30% physical power increase just by hitting someone with Siphon Blood and then hitting them really hard. There is no reason she would ever hit a god without 30% physical power increase now. There is no reason she shouldn't have at least that. But yeah, this is, I see Callie, this is being too strong for Callie. Too strong. 70% I would have argued would be stupid, but you're talking about a double damage Callie, and I cannot think of anything stronger than that. I mean, she still won't be picked up in competitive play, obviously, because she's too easily killed and too easily locked down. But in terms of public matches, she will just eat everyone. I can't see a time where she won't be doing this, and I don't know. I will play test this, and see where it gets me. But it's just, this is going to be, honestly, I can't put you into words. Actually, I can. The only time I've been this concerned about a change was a little while ago when they put focus on the cooldown buff. And I just had this vision of a Ymir running out of the jungle behind me and stunning me for 3 seconds while I was being murdered by Creep and them. There was nothing you can do against that. This is, again, is nothing you can do early game. If it's up to 90% early game, it's terrifying. And I'm sorry for raising my voice, but I'm trying to install upon you about how dangerous this is. So please take heart and be wary until there is another patch, because honestly, the others, Cupid has to run around and pick up hearts. Arachne has to be on top of you. Basakura has to eat a minion. Callie has to hit you. That's what Callie does anyway. Callie is in a battle. That's what she's doing. This just seems to me to be big and very, very strong. It just seems a little buff is nice, but a big buff like this is just incredible. Neith, her backflip. Now, the cooldown has been increased from 10 to 15 seconds. I did do a talk about this in some of my Neith videos that I thought it was too short, and they have increased it, which they needed to do. I think it might be decreased, maybe to 13 seconds, but we'll have to see. Unravel. Now, I'll talk about the healing abilities of this first. The healing has been reduced. The base healing I thought was fine. What I didn't think was fine was the healing from the weave, which was 200 per one, is now 160. I thought the weaves were overpowered, not the base healing. But they've lowered both of them, which is fair enough. What I can see is a physical power contribution to its ability increases 50% of your physical power per target hit up to 3, which is good. That seems to be a very balanced number. 15% per target hit. It's very balanced. It's not 25% like Cupid picking up hearts. It's not stupidly big like Basakura's Eat Minion. It's a decent little... I can get 45% for a certain amount of time if I hit 3 people with this ability. And it just adds an intrigue into Neith, which is fine. That seems to be where the rest of them are probably going to end up, is nearer Neith's 15% per hit. What is terrifying, again is terrifying, is physical power contribution has been added to the weave for 30% per one that you absorb. Now, if this is for 5 seconds, this is terrifying, because you will get a kill. What you will do is you will backflip, you will run up into their creep wave, backflip behind them, drop your weave, drop your unravel, sorry, onto the back end of their creep wave, which is where one or two of your weaves that were. You then have over 100% physical power contribution at level 5 or 7 or whatever. You will then kill the squishy in that lane. You will 2 or 3 hit it. You will be in a position behind them where they will turn around and see you firing in their face for 300-400 per hit, if you're and critting and stuff, and it's at level 10, and they will just be like, I died to 3 hits from Neith because you got a couple of crits in, and they just died, and then you're able to turn your attention onto the tank and nearly kill the tank, or kill the tank straight away. It's just, they have to put a number of how many weaves can be absorbed. I know you can only drop 2 or 3. Or maybe, I think it's 5 from backflip. I think it's like Artemis's thing. But you can have an infinite amount of enemy deaths. So you could have, quite easily, 3 physical power contributions. And I know people will say, oh, don't worry. They only last 2 minutes. I was like, yes, you have every 15 seconds you can set up a backflip. You can set it up to have 90% physical power where you know the creep will be. That's 45 seconds of a setup to get 2 kills. Easy 2 kills. They will be able to do practically nothing against you. Because you'll be able to have 3... Every 45 seconds, you will hit 100 and... Over 100. Way over 100. You'll be hitting 90 just with that, and then the extra 45. 135 extra physical contribution with Neith. Even if it's capped at 3. Which I think it should be the cap. It's a huge amount of extra physical power to put on something. To be honest, I think it should be 20. 30 is a big, big number. It's a huge number. Because of the amount, because of the way I play with the weaves. I put them where the creep are, because that's where the fighting's going to be. That's where I strategically put them during the laning phase, so that if they engage us through the creep wave, I can blow up a weave with my spirit arrow, stunning and rooting them, so that we can back off and stop them from engaging us, or I can heal a huge amount up if I get low. That's just where you put them. That's just what Neiths do. Having a place where you can just siphon up a stupid amount of physical power means early game Neith will be terrifying. She was already pretty good. However, like, this will mean she will win mid lane. I can't think of a reason why someone abusing this won't win Neith mid lane. It's GG if Neath is in mid lane from now on. If this sticks for a while, because she will be able to. Because if it's Ao Kuang, for example, they never land tornadoes because you just backflip out of them. If you stick near the middle of the creep wave the whole time, you'll be able to backflip out of that way. They use that on the creep wave. You backflip back. You get behind the Ao Kuang in between their tower and them. Suck up all the weaves you've put on the ground, and you kill the Ao Kuang, because there is nothing that the Ao Kuang can do, because you are able to backflip, root them in place, and get 3 or 4 hits, easy peasy, with not including the damage from your Spirit Arrow. 3 or 4 basic hits will just kill the Ao Kuang. It's mage mids will die. Tanking Hades mids. I mean, God's truth, the amount of damage you can do to them is frightening. It's a huge, huge amount. I know I'm sounding very, very whiny. I know I'm sounding like, oh my god, I can't believe they're doing this. I know I'm sounding whiny. But, honestly, this is... If used that's the problem. That's the problem with this, is that pubs will be terrifying, because if they have a competent player on their team which is able to abuse this and abuse the Kali one, basically go in and use this changes, because loads of people in pubs, they don't read patch notes. I didn't used to read patch notes until a couple of years ago when I was playing competitive gaming in League. I started reading the patch notes because I realised, oh wait a minute, there are changes which matter. These are big changes that matter, and I'm glad they're doing it in the beta version, because this would just, in a full launch, this would be terrifying. But genuinely, it's a lot. I know later on you're only probably going to be getting 30% physical power contribution from it, but you need to be very, very careful about what you're doing, otherwise it will be frightening. So this is very, very bad. Anyway, moving on to Vimana. His Colossal Fury, the amount of healing every second he can get has been reduced from 5% to 3%. I think this is an okay change. I'm not necessarily 100% sure why they did it, but they needed a... He was healing too much, and able to tower dive for free. And this would mean that he's not able to tower dive for free. He's able to do certain things, and you're able to kill him, which is good. But you do need to be very, very careful when engaging with Vimana still, but hopefully 2 or 3 people will be able to nuke him down very, very easily. But that's all really to say about Vimana. About Vulcan, his ability. Vulcan is a god with which 50% of his effect, well, most of his effectiveness actually, is his turrets. That's pretty much what makes him strong, and they're computer controlled, and he can't say, "Oh, he target that god." He needed this little buff because he's had the delay between the Inferno Cannon being landing and its first shot has been put to 0.25 seconds instead of a second, so you're able to get a couple of hits on a god, hopefully, but it's still. He's still limited by the fact that he has turrets. And in League it didn't really matter because you were able to run away and position them really, really well. But in this Smite is a third person, so positioning is trickier to get. And the idea of getting everything perfect is, you know, a little bit worrying. But we'll have to see. We'll just have to see how this works out. I think this is a good buff for him because I think he needs it. Because he won't be played in a big competition if this is what's going to happen to him. Anyway, that's the patch. We've talked about the negatives for healing, and we've talked about the new physical power gains for certain gods, making them more competitive. But we'll just have to see over the next couple of days how it goes and how badly the pubs are going to get stomped. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. This has been the February 20th patch and my views on it. I'm Serath from Defection Gaming. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.